Welcome everyone to the Creating Our Future event for the Cork Science Festival presented by Blackrock Castle Observatory. Today, we're looking to stimulate conversation about what the future of Ireland should look like. And as a space science center, we here at BCO are best positioned to start the conversation about what Ireland's future in space should look like. I should note we're just presenting both sides of the argument here, and this discussion does not necessarily reflect the personal opinions of our debaters today, because this will not be a traditional debate, and that there will be no winner or loser. We only hope that this will spark a conversation, and it's up to you to take the next step to decide what Ireland's future should look like. So for this discussion, I would like to present to you Dr. Niall Smith, Head of Research at Munster Technological University, and Rob O'Sullivan, Science Communicator and member of the BCO Outreach Team. And I am Danielle, also a member of the BCO SciComm team, and I will also be your moderator for today. So let's just get straight into this topic. We won't waste any time here. So I'd like to start the conversation off with Niall, and I would like to hear your side of why Ireland should invest further in the space industry.
Absolutely, Danielle. Well, the global space industry is expanding rapidly, and that gives huge opportunities for more use of data from satellites, more satellites that do useful things. And Ireland needs to invest more because we should be part of that. We should help direct that. We should make sure that the satellites we need in orbit are doing what we need. We should make sure that we're getting the best advantage from them. So, for example, we want to monitor floods, if we want to monitor buildings, whatever it might be, we need to be sure that what's in space works best for us. So that means investing in space. And I think a key thing about the reason why investing in space is so important is there are things you can do from space that you simply cannot do from the ground. It's not wasted money. So when you put a satellite up and it costs you €1 million, let's say, what it has been shown time and again is that you get back much more than €1 million in value from that satellite. So it's an investment in our future. It's an investment in doing things that you can't do on the ground. And we live in a universe that's three-dimensional. So the surface of the Earth will be two-dimensional. Why would we do that? It makes no sense. So Ireland should invest more in space because actually your return is more than you invest in the first instance. And I think it'd be great for people to think about, well, what is it we should do in space? Well, it'll be good.
Very interesting. So Rob, what do you think about that? What do you think about Ireland and investing further in space?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the debate questions ahead of time, and of all of them, this is the one I was dreading the most because on paper, investing in space makes as much sense as any other investment. There is a pretty decent return on investment, as has been seen. But what we have to ask ourselves is, are we able to give the resources needed to get the best return on investment? Is Ireland realistically a player in this market? For instance, people are at the moment worrying that data centers are being built in the country and that they might stretch our resources too thin. Is that a consideration we need to make going forward if we're going to join the space industry? What kind of resource demands are there going to be, and are we placed to meet them? So it is also an additional expense, like any other. You need to weigh up whether or not it is an expense that we can justify. Do we need to spend a lot of money to become a small fish in a big pond, or is what we contribute to the future of our space industry going to pay back enough for us to be happy with? So it's not really a no, we shouldn't. It's more of a we just need to think about it and ask yourselves: does this industry make more sense than another industry that we might be able to put that money into?
So the next topic we have for discussion here is near and dear to the astronomer's heart. So I would like to ask you about putting more satellites into the sky. Is this a good thing?
Absolutely. So if you want to do, for example, to bring broadband to the globe, and you want to do that as quickly as possible, the best way to do it is putting more satellites in space. You do that because the satellites are low. Low, it means they don't sit over you for very long. So when one goes over your position, another one has to come along and take its place. And so what happens is, instead of having one satellite very far away, you have lots close by you. So we have the opportunity for the first time ever to actually provide global internet coverage by putting up more communication satellites. At the same time, more satellites mean we can monitor crops of individual farms more regularly. More satellites means we can find forest fires just as they're getting started. More satellites mean that we can monitor traffic so that we can redirect cars and use less emissions. More satellites allow us to address climate change in a way that, again, we can't do from the ground. So more satellites, absolutely, we need them, we should build them, we should launch them.
Yeah, well, I think traffic is something that everybody can relate to there, so that's pretty important. Now, Rob, what do you think about putting more satellites into space?
Well, I think in theory it's a good idea, but the important question is whether or not it will be in practice. I mean, there are definitely concerns to be had regarding things like space debris. There's a lot up there already that hasn't come back down, and if we do have a collision that's significant enough, it can do a lot of damage to the same global networks that we were talking about improving. And the other important thing to remember is that there is a lot of arguments made to say, for instance, that satellites can bring us global broadband, but it never mentions, or it's rarely mentioned, whether or not it'll be affordable across the globe. So it might be affordable by one country's standards, but not necessarily by another. The people that put in the infrastructure might not be the same people that are actually charging you for the service. So these are the kind of accessibility discussions that we need to be having, in addition to whether or not putting the satellite up there in the first place is a good thing. The other thing to note is, yes, it's the best means by which to get this internet to us, but it's not the only way. And we need to decide, okay, is the best way of getting us satellite delivered internet at the expense of the beauty of the night sky and having lots of white dots zipping around worth the cost of losing that beauty of the night sky? Again, it's not a definitely not, definitely yes, but we have to weigh up the cost versus the benefit, I think.
And this will be more and more, we'll see more satellites going up. And so this will become a topic that's quite hot going forward for the future. So the next thing I'd like to discuss, and this is connected to those satellites going up, is the private space industry and privately funded space exploration. Is this a positive thing? And how is this looking for us here on Earth? What do you think about this, Niall?
Yeah, so private space industry is the way forward. We need to make sure that everybody who wants to get access to space should have access to space. Private industry will allow us to do that. It democratizes space. Private industry makes it cheaper, it makes it faster, and it means that whatever you put up there is more available. Industry has more companies, more people in different parts of the world, so it's more creative, it's more innovative. And private industry is more likely to attract investment from people. So rather than the old method where it took us forever to put stuff up, we get on with it, put stuff up as we need it now to address issues that affect us now. And private industry is the only way forward. So I think that's a simple answer. It's an exciting time. Let's just do it.
That's a strong argument, the only way forward. So Rob, what do you think about that?
I wouldn't 100% agree that it's the only way forward. It might be the most effective and fastest way forward, but we also have to weigh up the ethical dimensions of this. A large part of the private space industry is funded by a small group of individuals, and it's a product, I guess, in a way, of a large wealth inequality. You know, that it was in 2018, the 26 richest people in the world had as much wealth as the 3.8 billion poorest. And is that worth the cost of, is the benefits we're yielding from these private exploration efforts worth the cost that they're coming with? And, you know, would we be better off investing in generating better wealth equality and maybe investing in these space exploration endeavors as a public drive rather than a private drive? The other major concern I would have is that there is a lack of legislation across a company. So for instance, one company operating out of one area may have to abide by different laws to another area. We've already seen instances where two separate satellite operators were playing chicken temporarily. And we have seen major safety concerns cited in one or two instances as well, with some people heading up towards space themselves. So it is something that we have to be very cautious about rushing into, I think. And it's important that we're all having a say in it, and it's not just the strongest players and the wealthiest players that are having a say on what our future in space looks like.
It'll be very interesting seeing how this plays out going forward, and especially how this relates to our next topic, which will be leaving this planet and going off to other planets. And the private industry probably will have a big role in that. So is this something we should even be doing? Should we be colonizing other planets? What do you think about this, Niall?
Well, absolutely. Of course we should, Danielle. And the great thing about being alive now is we're alive at a time when it starts to become possible. So we're developing the rockets that can bring us back to the moon. We're developing rockets that will shortly have the capability to bring humans to Mars. So why would we do that? Well, there's a number of reasons. They're there to be explored. So we should go out and explore them. They're there to tell us about the formation of the solar system. So best way to do that, just like on Earth, is to go and have people ferreting around in the rocks and checking what's all there. And so that means colonizing them, because people need to be able to grow food and so on in situ. So we just basically need to replicate what we have here on Earth on those planets. And the third reason is, by going to those planets, we learn a lot about the origins of our own planet and our own solar system, which you can't do if you don't go there as humans, because robots simply won't be able to do that in the way that humans can. They don't have that instinctiveness. They don't have that sense of, I wonder what's over there. So we need humans to go and to do this. And thinking longer term, if the species that we are part of is to survive, we have to leave this planet, and we have to start figuring out now how to do that. We need to protect ourselves in the long run, so we need to find new homes for ourselves. Ultimately, they won't be the moon and Mars, they'll be in some other solar system. So we have to figure ways to get from here to there, and we have to figure ways to make sure that when we do get there, we're able to survive. And if that means supplanting life forms that are already there, then that's what we're going to have to do. It will become survival of the fittest at some point for us, potentially. So that's why we need to colonize. So again, let's get on with the business of starting to figure out how we can do that.
Wow, this is a very long-term plan, isn't it? So, Rob, what do you think about this? What do you think about colonizing other planets?
I think that if we are to colonize another planet, we need to be happy with the one we're on first, because we're not just bringing people, we're bringing ideas and ways of living with us. And if we've decided that the world we're living on is an unequal one, or one that's full of prejudice or has issues with it, that we don't want to start fresh on a new planet with those ideas in mind. Or equally, even if we're happy with our planet as it is, that whoever is going forward is bringing those ideas with them and not starting their own planet. We've already seen one or two of the wealthier billionaires joking about how they would start their own nations on planets and that they wouldn't be subject to the laws of Earth. And hopefully those were just jokes, but it is obviously a very important consideration, because we haven't properly figured out how do you legislate on Mars. You know, it's not the exact same as living on Earth. The other thing that I would say is that I, in general, actually agree with the idea that, you know, to protect the species, we do need to get out there and land on other planets. No, I disagree with the idea that it's at the expense of another life form. I think if we find life elsewhere on other planets, it is absolutely vital that we respect that life. It is potentially a miracle, depending on your perspective, of course. And I think it makes sense to respect that life form. But the major issue I would have about us trying to colonize planets right now is that we're not doing a particularly great job of taking care of our own. And I do agree that other planets could be our plan B. And I don't think we can run the risk of messing up our plan B. I think our safety net needs to be in tip-top condition, and we shouldn't be playing with the safety net until we're ready to.
Well, it's an interesting idea of going out and going out to other planets and then having to bring our own things with us, and also possibly contaminating or affecting other life out there. But then also this idea of, what about bringing it back to Earth, which leads us into our next topic of harvesting resources. So this has been a real topic, especially for the private industry. And should we be harvesting resources from other planets or even celestial bodies like the moon? Is this something we should be considering, Niall?
Yes, we need to think about it, and yes, we need to do it. So if we look at saying, and he's absolutely right about our own planet. So there's a number of different ways that we can address our own planet. We can think of it as a planet in isolation, or we can think of it as part of a bunch of planets, or asteroids, or comets, or whatever it is. So if we use up all the nickel on our planet, well, then let's just get it somewhere else. It's in the universe. The universe has made lots of it. Trust me, we're not going to use up all the nickel in the universe. Nobody's ever going to notice that we've even taken a snippet of nickel. So wherever we can get the resources we need, we should just go there and we should do that. So we should mine asteroids, we should mine the moon, we should mine Mars. And we should do that so we either help the the people there or help the people back here. So I think there should be effectively no restrictions on that. Whoever can get there first should just go there first. Whoever wins that prize should just take that material back here, make as much money as they want. Maybe not as much money as they want. I mean, slightly less excessive about it. The universe is there. It can make sure that issues and problems which arise here on Earth and elsewhere can be addressed. Why would we not use those as solutions to those problems? So I think we go for it and we figure out how to do this in an impactful way.
Well, there's a lot out there. Like you mentioned, the universe is big and there are a lot of resources we could use here on Earth. And so, Rob, do you think we also should be taking what we can find and bringing it back?
I'm not going to say not ever, but I'm going to say not yet. I think we have yet to learn how to live sustainably on our own planet. And there is a risk that if we start harvesting resources elsewhere, that we're effectively writing a blank check for ourselves. There's a big difference between, as Niall said, running out of nickel, let's say. If you ran out of nickel because you were building a whole bunch of, I don't know, incubators for babies who are born prematurely, and you ran out of nickel because you used it to make a whole bunch of pinky rings. We as a society have to decide whether we're using the resources that we have sustainably first. But also there's issues around, like we said, we want to maybe go to these planets and live on them, and mining is a very damaging practice. It creates a lot of pollution. Do we want to bring that practice with us to this new environment? And at least if we are going to do it, maybe it needs to be heavily regulated to make sure that whoever gets there first isn't leaving the place an absolute mess for anybody that might want to come there and live there at a later stage. So, we do waste a lot of resources on this planet. And I think until we've figured out how to address the sustainability issue, that we shouldn't be looking to bring in resources from the outside just yet.
Well, thank you both very much for that discussion. It was very interesting, and there were a lot of topics that we definitely could go further into there. Would you like to have any closing arguments, anything further you would like to add before we sign off?
Yeah, well, just from my and Rob's perspective, I think, we've had a lot of fun thinking about these questions and thinking about the for and against arguments. So we'd be delighted if these help to spark some thoughts in whoever's watching. And critically, you come to creatingourfuture.ie, to that website. You hit you just go on that. It's incredibly simple. You hit the submit button and it simply asks you to put in your idea. It's only something like 400 characters. That's all you have to do. It'll take you less than 30 seconds perhaps to throw in your idea. All ideas are good. All ideas are welcome. They will help you to help determine the future issues that we address in Ireland, help you to create your future. So really, please do that, whether you agree or disagree with stuff that me and Rob have been saying, or it just sparks something completely different. Go on to creatingourfuture.ie and submit. That'll be the ideal outcome from you watching this.
Anything else you'd like to add, Rob?
Sure. I mean, as Niall said, both of us were making arguments there. Some we agree with, some we don't. And, I didn't find the arguments that are against my own personal beliefs that shocking or that difficult to get my head around. So I hope you'll feel that, people like myself and Niall down here at BCO are people that you can approach and come to with your ideas, and not feel that if you're worried that we're going to think they're silly. No, we're very open-minded. So if these are issues that you'd love to learn more about and you'd like to have a chat with us and learn our true perspectives on them, we'd be delighted to hear from you. So come on down to Blackrock Castle Observatory and ask us anything anytime.
Yeah, we'd love to have a chat with you about any of the topics that we discussed today, and you can always come down and visit us at Blackrock Castle Observatory. So I would really like to thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for these topics, Niall and Rob. And like they had mentioned, I just want to reiterate that these were just topics that the guys were presenting from different sides. That does not necessarily reflect their personal opinions. But thank you all for watching, and we hope that these topics have got you thinking about Ireland's place in space. So we encourage you to go visit creatingourfuture.ie and submit your ideas there.